Hello, students. So, welcome to the discussion on Daily Nuggets 20, the last Daily Nuggets. And I'm sure, I hope that the journey of Daily Nuggets has helped you to improve your performance in the logical reasoning and English section. I will certainly be glad to know about it. But yeah, let us, for the time being, continue with the discussion on the Daily Nuggets 20. So, this was the passage. If you want to read it once more, you can stop the video and do so before I go to my analysis. All right. So this passage again picked up from a newspaper. Let us see what the passage is about. So Russia invaded Ukraine on February 20, apparently to stop NATO's further expansion into its neighborhood. But in less than 3 months, the same invasion has pushed two countries in that neighborhood to consider NATO membership. Now, so there is a fact given that Russia invaded Ukraine on February 24 to stop NATO's further expansion. Of course, this is mixture of facts. Plus, I must also say, author is inferring here that they have done so to stop NATO's further expansion. These two things actually form the context of the entire passage. Later on, author gives his opinion on the same thing. His main opinion lies in the sixth line. Here he talks about that after the invasion, there are two more countries who are considering NATO's membership, and these two countries are Finland and Sweden. And author gives his opinion that if these two countries now formally apply for membership, it would be the biggest strategic setback for Vladimir Putin. And he then gives history of the relationship between Russia and Finland, and also talks about Sweden. He basically says that the Russia's invasion on Ukraine has deepened the security concerns for Finland and Sweden, and that is why they want to join the NATO. And in the next paragraph, he has started with his opinion. It is still not clear whether these countries would be inducted in NATO anytime soon. And then he has given his reason that why he believes that it is unclear, because NATO works through unanimous decision, and there are countries who have varying thoughts on whether they should give the membership or not. Then the last few lines are the final opinion of the author, where he says that a bigger question these countries as well as Europe as a whole faces whether another round of NATO expansion would help bring in peace and stability in Europe, particularly at a time when the continent is facing a pre-First World War type security competition. It would escalate the current crisis between nuclear armed Russia and NATO to dangerous level. So what he is saying is that basically the question they need to ask is whether the expansion will actually bring peace or stability. That's the question. Author is saying that it would escalate the current crisis. And he has shared in the final lines that actually the major focus should be to halt the war and to think about some long-term solution. He thinks that expanding NATO may not be the good idea. So this is his judgment. Let us look. Content is Russia's invasion of Ukraine and NATO's expansion, and author's judgment is if Finland and Sweden gets NATO membership, which they are seeking post Russia's invasion of Ukraine, it could escalate the problem, and stakeholders should focus on avoiding it. That is his judgment. Let us see the question. Which of the following statements sums up the author's position? Statement A, which is the right answer. The focus must be on Russia ending the war and not on expanding NATO. So this is given in the last few lines. This is where his opinion is, right? He is saying that if NATO is expanded, then there could be a dangerous situation. And he has suggested that the focus should be to halt the war, and stakeholders should focus on finding a long-term solution to the crisis. And it is because of this expansion, actually, he is saying that it is because of this expansion that Vladimir Putin felt insecure, and he wanted to weaken the NATO. And if NATO expands further, that may prompt Putin to do something else. That's the inference that I'm making, that is what he is going to say next. But you know, A is the best summary. Let us look at the other option. The stakeholders should focus on bringing peace and prosperity in the world. Wow, a very tempting option. If I have to mark this option, then I don't have to read the passage, because everybody will agree that all the people should try to bring peace and prosperity in the world. But that's not what he is saying. He is saying that halt the war and find a long-term solution. Of course, he has talked about peace, but there is no mention about prosperity also. So that also makes it bit out of purview. C, to avoid escalation of crisis, NATO shall not accept Sweden and Finland as member states. He's saying this, that if NATO is expanded further, there could be a problem, and it could escalate the crisis, right? But he's not, he's against the overall expansion. I cannot say it particularly with respect to Sweden and Finland. Yes, Sweden and Finland is used as an example, and he has per se talked about NATO as a whole. So this is a good option, right? From the problem is, one, Sweden and Finland, which I've already talked about, and the other problem is to avoid escalation of crisis. So he's saying to avoid crisis, don't do this. Rather, this looks a negative way of talking, whereas author has said that war should be closed and a long-term solution should be sought. Of course, we need to avoid the crisis, but that's not the main idea of the passage. So C is not the answer. D, to avoid escalation of crisis, NATO shall accept Sweden and Finland as member. This is obviously opposite of what he is trying to say, that the focus should not be on the expansion. Okay, so answer is option number A. Next, as per the passage, what can be most certainly said about Russia's invasion of Ukraine? It is the reason behind the current instability in the world. Again, a very good and tempting option. We all will agree that this has played a certain role. But in the passage, has he said that this is the reason? Not very directly. If I don't get a better choice, I should have marked it, but there is a better choice. B, it has its link to 1962 Cuban Missile Crisis. Now, it has its link. This is not true. Only thing which is being mentioned with respect to Cuban Missile Crisis is there was a similar situation back. But the present invasion has no link with 1962 Cuban Missile Crisis as per the passage. I cannot interpret that. So this cannot be the answer. The problem is with links. Of course, it is mentioned, but it is used as a precedence. See, it has influenced Finland's and Sweden's decision to consider NATO's membership. So yeah, here it should be word decision, or it has influenced Finland's and Sweden's decision to consider NATO's membership. So because of this war or invasion of Ukraine, they are considering it. He has said this. Influenced, yes, I can say influenced because of its effect. In the beginning also we said this. So C is a better choice than A. D, it is motivated by desire to weaken the NATO alliance. Now, this is again not mentioned directly in the passage. So if I have to look everything, C is something which is directly mentioned in the passage, and that is why I will go with C. A and D is debatable. It can be, it cannot be. C is a better choice. Which of the following can be inferred from the passage with respect to Russia's attack on Finland? So Russia's attack on Finland was way back in 1939. So with respect to that, what can be said? There was change in fortunes of Russia at least once during the war. So this is not directly given in the passage. So we have to read it to understand whether this is right or wrong. Though the Red Army struggled in the initial phase of the war, it faced Finland to sign the Moscow Peace Treaty. Yes. So this can be inferred from this line. They were struggling initially, but later on they forced Finland to do this. So this can be inferred. B, Finland with support of Nazi was able to win back the territory that it ceded to Russia. Let us see what is mentioned. So Finland ceded 9% of the territory, but a year later, the Finns in alliance with German Nazis attacked Soviet troops. Peace was established. Nothing is being mentioned about whether they were able to win back or not. So this cannot be inferred. So answer is only A. Next, with respect to the prospect of Sweden and Finland getting NATO membership, consider these four statements. It is unclear whether they will get the membership. Lack of consensus among the member nations may hinder the prospect. The expansion of NATO will bring peace and stability in the region. There are some existing member states whose views are still not clear on the prospect. With how many of the above statements author will agree? Let us see. he will agree with the first one. It is unclear whether they will get the membership. Yeah, he's saying that we are not clear whether they will be inducted or not. Lack of the consensus among the member nations may hinder the prospect. That we can infer. That's the reason. Whether they will be inducted or not, the entire thing is dependent because they take decision unanimously and there are differing views. So even this is true. The expansion of NATO will bring the peace and stability in region. This is absolutely false. There are some existing member states whose view are still not clear on the prospect. Yes, that is also mentioned, that their views are not yet clear. So this is true. So with how many of the above statement author will agree? It is 3 statements. Next, considering all the facts and arguments given in the passage, which of the following could be the most possible repercussion if Sweden and Finland are given NATO membership? So yes, said if they are given, there can be a further war-like situation. A, the tension between Russia and NATO alliance could further escalate. Perfect. Let us look at the other option. Turkey may exit the NATO alliance because it has been opposing membership to Nordic state. This part is true that it has been opposing, but I cannot say that it will exit. Alliance may put pressure on Hungary to sever its ties with Russia again. Hungary and Russia have some ties, but we cannot say that alliance may put pressure. If they have to, they can still put. A world war-like situation would arise, threatening stability across the globe. So it is mentioned that this situation is pre-First World War type. But I can't say that a world war-like situation will arise and it will threaten the stability across the globe. Looks a good option. But once again, A is best defendable as compared to D, and that is why A is the right answer. Now, that is it from my side. In this particular passage, from my side, I have tried to keep 2 or 3 new type of question, like question number 4 and 5 particularly, so that you get more exposure to the questions that may come. That's it from my side. Thank you.